Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start the recording and then start the event, and then just for reference, this is going to be, I think, really helpful to the discussion in general. I brought a map, which are not always easy to find. I mean, I know you can kind of screen cap one if you're like really careful about getting it kind of between frames. But we have a map, just to help us know where everything is. So the idea for tonight's event was that, Rosaluna and Glaciela, story spoilers ahead, for not the last week's chapter, but the week before that, and kind of stuff before that too. Since everything has happened, they are kind of fighting for control of the country, literally fighting for control of the country. Wezette is in a bit of a civil war, but for the most part, they kind of agree on most things, and that the people need more power than they had under Curie. Curie was wrong, that the future should not go forward in this way. They're both anti-monarchists, but there are a number of things that they disagree on, other than just who should lead Wezette into the future. One of those things is borders, and whether they should be open or whether they should be closed. I think this is a fascinating question. We have a lot of lore to go on, and even just this map really just kind of opens up a lot of questions about that particular debate. So since I invited you here, Caveman, to be our Rosaluna so that I can be our Glaciela, I would like to give you the opportunity to start or to choose who starts.
No, definitely. Once again, I'm Caveman. I've been on a few of his videos now. Nice to see you all again. Good evening, afternoon, morning, whatever.
Yeah,
as far as lore goes, I actually been finding it really interesting between these two sisters, because their plight with their country kind of parallels everything that's happened in our world. As far as, like, if you take a look at the French Revolution, or more recently, when the Bolsheviks were thrown out of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely something that I can see happening in wotv. It's just a matter of will Glaciela be able to unify her people, or will Rosaluna see Glaciela as an extremely weak leader, which, in my opinion, she kind of does. And that was a big issue with the Russians.
Throwing jabs at your opponent already. Jeez.
Yes.
You gotta have the personal attacks so early. Gracious.
If you've read the Communist Manifesto like I had to, my teacher was quite the history buff. They saw I forget the king's name, but they saw him as an extremely weak leader when they overthrew his reign.
Mm-hmm. The Tsar.
The Tsar, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the Tsar allowed corruption to pretty much run rampant, much like how right now Glaciela's letting happen inside the story. Once again, spoilers. She just dealt with a local noble.
Yeah, I was about to say, I happened to take a screenshot of her dealing with that problem, just in case. Not in case you were going to say that, but I do have that screenshot in case you want to say she didn't deal with that problem admirably.
No, she very much
pretty decisively dealt with that.
She waited till it festered, though. You can't. It's like she's playing a game of whack-a-mole. When in reality, what she should be doing is taking the. I'm willing to bet that the country's run very much like how Russia was before the 1900s, before World War I, as a fiefdom.
Yeah, that's kind of the parallel that I see.
Which means the peasants had no land rights.
Mm-hmm.
So everything Rosaluna's saying, you would need to take the land rights away from the nobles, take away their power, and allow for the peasants to buy or to be given their land. And you can't exactly have foreigners intervening when you're going through an upheaval like that.
Okay, so that is your concern, that foreigners are going to intervene, that like Like, specifically, what do you think is going to happen, and maybe who? Because you can kind of see who we as a country border right now, and you can think about kind of the conflicts that are going on in the area. What do you think is going to happen?
So as far as the border, obviously, as far as with wotv, you do have the remnants of Moraga's army. That's a very big threat already. They could be marauders, they could become bandits, pirates. Hell, they could even be doing like if wotv has its own form, they could be drug dealers for all we know.
Oh, sure.
wotv has never gone that deep, but it's pretty obvious that Moraga's men, with the remnants of his army, are obviously being bought by the nobles to protect their interests from Glaciela.
Okay.
The men that attacked Glaciela and her sister at their duel were remnants from Moraga's army with that noble. So that's something where closing down the border, you could stem the tide of that. And it would also allow you to get your country under control and to stop the banditry.
Okay.
And
so you agree that we have a problem with the nobles trying to usurp power from whoever takes control of the country. Like, even if they are deposed, even if we take their land, even if we distribute it out to the people, we still have them wanting to retake their power. They're still they still bring in people potentially through the borders for a coup. But here's my concern with that, though. After, I had to take several arrows for you, sister. They're inside the country. We probably, our army kind of got decimated by Jaden. We have some of the largest, just in terms of the perimeter of our borders is larger than any other country except maybe Horn. So, committing to defending even the borders that border other countries, in which case we're a little bit better positioned than Horn, but still probably worse than any other country. We just have a massive border to defend. Our army has recently been decimated. Then, after our army was decimated, we went into a civil war. The reason Rogal even had to call in mercenaries is because of how few soldiers we actually... He couldn't even find his own people to do a coup. He had to get people from Finis. So, what makes you think that we have the army to commit to defending the Finis border when we just got through an assassination attempt inside of it? Do we not need defenses? I mean, should we not have maybe a security detail? Should there not be defenses? I mean, I don't disagree that we need defenses from that. I think that's a serious concern, but I think that they need to be here and not necessarily on our borders. If people come in from Finis and they want to contribute in some way, we should let them. This is a pretty harsh and desolate land, and most of our population tends to be in the north where it's the coldest. People who actually choose to be here, I mean, we should kind of respect that and deal with the problems where they happen, because we need to rebuild. Again, our army went up against basically a firing squad when Jaden came in, and that was with Mont helping. Oh no, that was without Mont helping. Mont cleaned that up by pretty much wiping out the castle guard after that. We need, and Finis has no leadership. I understand that there is some concern. I mean, we saw the ends of that. I can't deny that. I'm glad you brought that up, in fact. But at the same time, we need military. These people are coming here looking for jobs, essentially. We can allow them to be hired as mercenaries, or we can hire them for our own military after it's been defeated. I mean, they don't have any military leaders. Kilfei, gone. Aldoa, who is, I don't know, kind of like their de facto queen, kind of. I don't think that ever got made official, because they were trying to do a thing with Horn at the time, but she was the bottom bitch, as Butters would say. I don't know why Glaciela knows South Park like that, but she does. Just don't question it. Look at our other borders, though. Just to kind of hammer this point home, I think Finis is arguably the best place the place that we most likely need defenses, because Leonis is like just the worst off. I mean, the entire country was destroyed by miasma. Everybody has been pushed out as refugees. All of the Leonis refugees that were going to come across our border are here. That's already happened. Most of them probably went to Horn, though, and we have a tiny border with Horn. And, by the way, folks, if you're looking for who to vote for out of the two of us, I have a personal sisterhood pact with the Queen of Horn. So I can assure you that that border will be safe. They also are on the other side of Finnis, so if Finnis ever organizes something more serious, we kind of have them pinned in on both sides. So there's a lot of reasons why, you know, a more organized threat wouldn't come from Finnis, and Leonis is allied with Horn. We're de facto kind of in alliance with them. And the main fighting that's happening is happening in Ovis with Heinler right now. I'm not sure what's going on in Rundle, but I don't think we can quite count them out of it, and they're right there on it. And then the Crystal Sanctum's right there in the middle of that. So maybe we'll see some people fleeing through the water from Ovis. But again, I think for the same reasons we should take them in. And in fact, we should probably be a little less scared of them being bandits as maybe Finnis. But I think that we should, instead of like discouraging people, refugees, fleeing from the destruction that is happening in Ovis, and also that will be happening in Ovis with the Realm Scourge heading that way, we should be welcoming those people in through the sea if we can. So, sorry, I took up a lot of time there. Do you have anything to say to that? Jeez.
No. I do agree that Leonis is definitely the lesser of two evils as far as our border goes.
Mm-hmm.
But Venice is still very much an issue here.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, we can bring these people into our army, but they have no allegiance to us. There's no tie to our lands with them. The minute another Venice leader comes along, they'll betray us.
Mm-hmm.
After all, what good is our coin when we have snakes literally in our midst? I say we take these peasants, we do help them by bringing them into the army, giving them a decent wage so they can rebuild their towns when their duty is done. Sort of a limited service. We bring them in, we use them to secure the border, and we provide them with coin. When they return home, they can use the coin to start new farms, rebuild their farms or their family holdings, or buy new land.
I like at least half of that idea.
I know I'm not trying to sound too much like Trump here. Oh God, how does Rosaluna know about that? Don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Same way Glaciela knows about South Park. It's the far plane, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever need an answer for this kind of thing, we saw it in the far plane.
Yeah, I blame those Mughals.
Yeah.
And their darn propaganda.
Yeah, it's all Mughal propaganda. Yes, you're right.
As far as letting refugees in, how can we let refugees from other countries in when we can't even feed our own? We need to rebuild.
Mm-hmm. I agree, but we need people to rebuild. Like, we are... One of the reasons that our farms aren't working, other than, you know, we're the Ice Kingdom. But that's always been our problem. That's something that we have learned to work around. And we've worked around it through manpower. And we just don't have that right now. I do like the idea of maybe taking them into the military, though not necessarily to defend the border. By your own logic, that doesn't seem to be a good plan, because if you're worried about them being traitors, then charging them with defending the border is kind of a problem. Also, I think
No. The soldiers, refugees and remnants from Moraga's army, I suggest we do not bring in at all.
Okay.
They have no allegiance to us. We need to focus on our people.
Okay, so you're taking the civilians and putting them on the border. You're assuming they're going to be more loyal.
Bingo.
Okay. I think that's fairer, but here's what I would do. I would take in roughly anyone that really wanted to come, but how do you... I do think you raise a good question here in how do you get them to feel as though they are no longer allegiant to Finnis and now really a part of Wezette. Well, there is one thing that we have more than almost any other kingdom, other than just border perimeter or coastline. We have land. We have a lot of land. I mean, why not some sort of a 3 acres and a mule program and have them contribute to the reconstruction of the country similar to Roosevelt's CCC. I forget exactly what that stands for, but I was reading about it in a park this weekend. It's like the Civilian Conservation Corps, I think. Mm-hmm. It was very, it was an enlistment program for sure, but they were building national parks, and I'm sure that we could use a similar program to rebuild farms, to rebuild destroyed villages, to just repopulate our cities. Yeah, and I think that giving them ownership, exactly, and I think giving them actual ownership of land within our country, like, then they have something to fight for and something to defend. We are giving them a chance to start over. And I think that, kind of making it having them take home money, they're still thinking about their future allegiance as being in Finnis. But if they are building a future on our land, how do they not think of themselves as citizens of Wezette?
What's good for the goose isn't always good for the gander. I mean, it all sounds good, but we're still giving away our land to foreigners. We should be giving it to our people first.
Well, absolutely. Like, if we have people within our country that do not currently own land that want to work for it, we should absolutely give them the same deal as the refugees. I have no problem in conceding to that. I would even put them first in line. The thing is, we have a lot of land and not a lot of people. Even before the war, we had more land than we knew what to do with necessarily. It takes a lot of effort to rebuild, and I'm not sure that we've ever had something like a CCC. I mean, we haven't had the most compassionate rulership. If this is anything like the Tsarist Russia, we're built up in exactly one place, the national capital, and everything else has fuck all been done with it. We need to rebuild all of that outlying civilian infrastructure. We need to rebuild cities in the north, and we need to build things that should have been built hundreds of years ago. There's a whole south of our country that we don't even mess with for whatever reason.
Yeah, you can't really tell from the map. I'm wondering if it's because of mountains.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that this is the best map that we can go for lore, but I'm not really sure. It's just my understanding that they're in the north
as well, and I've been looking. It's like, what about the coastal areas?
Yeah,
is there any natural rivers in that? But you would think they would have a detailed map, but they really don't. And I can't really tell if it's all mountainous, if it's tundra, or are we dealing with a Russia where it's just vast empty ice sheets? Or are we dealing more with a Sweden where you have forest upon forests that are just mountainous?
And really it could be any of those things, but I would just think from the latitude, from the fact that it's kind of over here next to Leonis, that it would have to be a lot more temperate. So I would have to assume that for whatever reason, the reign of idiots that we have had for the last hundreds of years built up a defensible refuge during the great wars caused by Gilgamesh in the north, where they couldn't be touched, and basically abandoned the developable or arable land to our south. But I guess we'd still defend it? I'm not sure. I think we need people to develop that land, though, if we're going to solve the food problem that we're facing. And I think that given that we have probably more land below a certain latitude that is probably potentially, with a little bit of development, maybe if there's a lot of trees and stuff, developable than even a neighboring kingdom like Leonis that is that does well. Then, you know, assuming the land itself is arable, or we can do something with it over time, I think we, you know, by enlisting the people and by enlisting the refugees, they're definitely going to come from, I mean, Oberon has 2 rings and he's gone crazy. There's also a thing called the Realm Scourge, I'm pretty sure you noticed recently. There's going to be a lot of refugees coming in, and I think that we are potentially a nation that could put them to use in building a stronger Wezette than has ever existed before. A path towards a future where we could be the kingdom we always should have been to begin with. Like, just look at how big we are on the map, and we stuck it out in the north? What are we doing?
Yeah, I've been, as I said, I've always been mulling over what it's like in the south.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like all the events happens here in the north, at least story-wise for the game. Hell, I even loaded up at Brave Exvius, because I know this is like the same world but different time. But I can't really tell.
So this area, you know the clouds that are to the west of the Den of the Dragon King, I think?
Yeah.
That's roughly where Ardra is. But as you can see on this map, there's actually additional land to our continental landmass beyond Rundle that just doesn't get talked about. There's also like some barrier island somewhere, I think. I've seen a bigger picture of this somewhere, I just don't want to go and find it, but one of the answers to the question that we've been mulling over, like if we're trying to fill in our gaps in wotv knowledge with like real world parallels, is that a lot of, from my understanding, you get a bit more deserty when you're getting into kind of the southern Russian territories. You're getting you're bordering into the Middle East. You're getting a lot more of that type of terrain in there, or some sort of gradient in between the two. So maybe it's just deserty. I don't know.
Yeah, but this, to be honest though, you would think that this would be in the far north. Considering how the game represents pretty much Wezette as a frozen wasteland. Which, you are right, the further south you get, the more arable the land should get, and the warmer it should be.
Well, and again, if we're looking at Russia, which is kind of like this, but like if you rotated the map about 90 degrees counterclockwise, you got like Russia China up there. The one that's shaped like China to me is Finis. It's just really tiny. It's tiny China, which is funny. But if we're thinking about it as Russia, this also kind of fits because St. Petersburg is in, I mean, not in the very north, but it's more in the north, like maybe, you know, on the main of the Wolf.
Yeah, it's definitely in there.
But it's up there compared to the rest of the country, and like I said before, well, honestly, the commies didn't really build up much of that. They did a lot more than the Tsars ever did, and then, you know, Putin kind of took all the stuff from the people and sold it to the oligarchs, essentially, with more steps. But so it really hasn't ever been built out, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's really the same for Wezette, that they have a lot of land that they just haven't done anything with because it wasn't near where the monarchy was. Okay, that's probably enough YouTube for one attention span. If you would like to see the extended version of this debate, where we just go into a long discussion about historical parallels and what they probably mean for several of the kingdoms within the wotv story and within Ardra, then that link will be in the description, along with links to donate to the channel, links to buy my books because I'm a writer. Ain't that cool? Also, other important stuff, I'm sure, links to my Discord where you can participate in debates like this if you want to sign up for that kind of thing. We also do PvP tournaments, all sorts of cool stuff like that, and we would be happy to have you. But other than that, just like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, or I'll see you in the extended cut.